Hi everyone, my name is Sharon. I'm the designer behind River Road Knits, and today we're going to be talking about my new design, the Rosslyn tee. In these teaser trailers, I like to give you a sneak peek of the design. So we'll talk about the design, the garment itself, we'll talk about construction, techniques, modifications you can make, as well as yarn choice. Let's walk through the design first. So this design, as you can tell, it's a cropped length short sleeve sweater. These are little cap sleeves, so you're actually not knitting any sleeve beyond the underarm. It has a cute little mock turtleneck up here. You can adjust this length as you would like. This is about a 1¼ inch mock turtleneck. And you have these cable detailing in the shoulders, the raglan area. On the front and on the back, and these cables continue down the side panel, and then within the side panel you have these beautiful little chevrons that sort of add a little bit of detailing to the side. And of course all the rest of it is knit in this 2x1 rib that gives it a nice amount of stretch and a little bit of interest all throughout. So let's talk about construction. This is a top-down sweater, which means that you will start at the neckline. You will cast on stitches for the neck, continue to the bottom of the mock turtleneck, and then you will start doing the increases out of the raglan cables. So the increases are done as you go along, so that when you get to the bottom, this sleeve split, you are at the dimensions you need for your sleeve and for your bust, plus the underarm cast on underneath the arm. So when you get to the body, this is knit straight, so there is no shaping written in the pattern. So that is the construction of the garment. As you can see, the back and the front, they are actually the same. They are reversible. There is no shorter shaping on this garment, so the front and the back will have the same shape to them. The list of special techniques for this garment is actually pretty short. I have written in the pattern, I've recommended that you use the slip knot cast on up here at the neck edge for two reasons. One, it gives you a nice edge when you're working in a ribbing pattern, and two, it is a very, very stretchy cast on, so when you're wearing this and you're trying to put it on over your head, it will stretch to go over your head and then spring back nicely to sit kind of tight around your neck. So I've recommended that, but you can swap that for any other stretchy cast on that you prefer. And then the only other technique that I've called out are these cables that go on the front of the body. And I have a tutorial that I've made for those just so that you can follow along and see exactly how the cables are crossing. But they mirror each other, so there's a different cable pattern for the right and the left side. I have a section in the pattern called modifications where I give you some ideas for modifications that you might be interested in. So two of them are related to the length of the garment. So it's two places where you can add length or take away length depending on how you would like your garment to sit on you. So one is to add or remove length before you get to the sleeve split, and this will just lower or raise the yoke on your body. So that's adjustable. You would just continue knitting after you've done your decreases, or take out rows after you've done your decreases and bind off sooner or later, and that will adjust your yoke depth. And then in the body, I have this as slightly cropped. It hits just at the top of my pants. So that is 10 inches from underarm to bottom, but you can obviously change that. Some testers made it longer, some testers made it shorter. So that's just a matter of adjusting the length that you knit, and that's not difficult because there is no waist shaping on this garment, so you just go until you're done. The last modification that I talk about in the pattern is the possibility of adding sleeves. So if you are familiar with garment construction, you would know that when you're doing a seamless garment and it's long sleeved, you would get to the sleeve split, you would put the sleeve stitches on hold, knit the rest of the body, and when you come back to the sleeves, you would take them from their waist yarn that they're being held on, move them onto the needle, and then pick up the corresponding number of stitches from the underarm. So if you're familiar with garment construction, that's a really easy modification to make here. So you could, instead of binding off at the underarm, you could keep these stitches live on some waist yarn, and then when you come to do the sleeves, you would just pick up the corresponding number at the underarm and keep it in that knit 2 purl 1 pattern. So that's a change you can make. A couple of my testers actually made that change themselves and it looked really good. So if you're interested in extending the sleeves, it's a kind of easy change if you're familiar with how you knit sleeves on a seamless sweater. Those are all the modifications that I have detailed in the pattern. However, my testers did make their own changes. Some added some waist shaping along the sides, similar to how you would in normal waist shaping. They just placed their decreases kind of at the outside edge of these outer cables. That's an option that I don't have detailed in the pattern, but you can certainly implement yourself. Let's talk real quick about picking your size. So this garment is graded for a total of 10 sizes. They range from 30.5 inches to 63.25 inch finished bust. So that means the bust measurement of the final garment. As far as ease is concerned, I recommend that you choose a size that is 0 inches of ease or even a little bit of negative ease. So when you're looking at the sizes that are available, you'll want to pick one that is close to your actual bust size or a little bit smaller. And the reason why I recommend that is because since there is no waist shaping in the pattern, the negative ease is going to help it curve around your bust and then come back in tight to your body. So that's my recommended ease. You can obviously choose more or less as you desire, but you can keep in mind that as you're picking the size that you'd like to make. Let's talk about yarn recommendations, and yardage for this pattern. So I made my sample in the Traveling Yarn Arcadia DK yarn, and that is a 100% non-superwash wool yarn that is obviously DK weight. That yarn, it's got a really nice squish and bounce to it, and I think the non-superwash quality helps it hold its shape and makes these cables really pop. So that's what I used for my sample. I think it came out great. This is the colorway Amber. And I will put in the description box below links to Sarah's shop, as well as I believe kits that she's going to put together for the Rosslyn team. So you can check out that yarn. I highly recommend it. If you're thinking about using another yarn, just some things to keep in mind. You should look for a yarn that has a lot of bounce and memory to it. So what I mean is when you stretch it, it goes back to how it was. It doesn't lose its shape. It doesn't sag or grow as time goes on. So several of my testers opted for a cotton yarn since it was a shorter sleeved garment. And I would recommend not going for 100% cotton because cotton doesn't really have that bounce and memory that you want for this garment. So I would recommend if you're going to use a cotton yarn to go with a cotton and wool blend. And as always, swatch with a pattern, swatch maybe even with the cables to see how that pops in your yarn. As you can see, I used a semi-solid, it's basically a solid colorway. And I would recommend using something with very little variegation so that you can really see the texture, see the cables. Otherwise, they might get lost in a heavily variegated yarn. So keep that in mind when you're looking for yarn to use. Finally, let's talk about yardage. So I have in the pattern, I have yardage detailed for each size, but in general, if you're looking at that Arcadia DK, which is 180 yards per skein, you're looking at needing 4 to 8 skeins depending on your size. So that's somewhere around 680 to 1,430 yards. So that's of a DK weight again, so you can keep that in mind. And of course, if you do any modifications, if you add or lengthen, add length or take length away from the body, then that's going to adjust your yardage that you need at the end. So keep that in mind when you're buying yarn, when you're thinking about modifications you'd like to make. And wherever you buy the pattern, I always have the schematic as one of the photos that's available before you buy. So you can look at that schematic, see the dimensions, start thinking about where you might like to adjust it, and then you know before you even buy your yarn what sort of changes you might have to make to your yardage. So that's all I was planning on covering in this video. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to put links to Sarah's yarn as well as places you can buy the pattern down in the description box below. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.